We're trying to escape from mansion or make sure no one ever escapes from our mansion.
We're playing Terrorscape from IceMakes.
Welcome to Box Meeples, I'm Julian and this is Libby, and today we are playing Terrorscape by IceMakes. Now, I was very fortunate to meet IceMakes at the UK Games Expo this year, where they thrust a copy of Terrorscape upon me for the purposes of making this little video about it. There's a spooky mansion, some people have ventured inside, they're trying to escape, and there's a killer who very much doesn't want them to escape.
Yes, we have decided that you are going to be the killer in our game, and we are going to be sat opposite each other with that huge, great big mansion which has such great table presence between us, and I will play all of those other victims. You can play with more people, of course, and they each take on different roles of the victims and sort of work together, because if one of you dies, you're all out. You're all out. So it's one against many, or one against one in our case. Some kind of killer who wants you out of his mansion versus us snooping around trying to find the keys.
So let's set up this mansion and it's time to board. Oh, spooky stuff.
Yes.
But you managed to escape the mansion. My butcher with his chainsaw terrified enough people by swinging it around in a random way, but not so much that the police were called and they came to your rescue.
They did. I mean, there was a lot of tension at times. I mean, it starts off and you think, this is all right. We're snooping around this mansion. We're sending out a few little radio messages. No one's going to notice. Oh, found a little key. Lovely. And it's kind of like, oh well, you can only move one or something. It'll be fine. He's got no idea where we are. It racks up pretty quickly. All of a sudden, you have all of these extra things, and it gets really tense. It gets super tense. And you have all these plans for things that you might be able to do to use the benefits that each of your characters have. So I was playing with 3 characters, and I was thinking, oh great, my engineer can go off and do this task in order to send out those radio signals. Oh, he got injured.
Yeah.
It was way too risky for him to do that. So then you have to kind of think of another way of how are we going to manage this? Or you've put a barricade up, so now I can't go through that area. I've got to kind of do something else, but still not let you know where I am with your wheeled-in chainsaw that's scaring everyone. And I mean, I was quite lucky. You wrongly guessed where I was quite a lot of times.
There's certain mechanisms that you can do as the victims to distract the butcher or whichever killer you're playing as, such as launching that whiskey bottle or using the hidden tunnels, which you very much took advantage of, because there's one point where I thought you into a room, and then suddenly, kind of like Among Us, you'd vanished, you weren't in there, you were elsewhere, because you'd used the tunnels that I hadn't appreciated you had such silent access to.
Yeah, and that does depend on the characters that you choose to play, which is nice that you've got that variety of, and I had to have picked up certain items to be able to monopolise that, but I was able to sort of scoot across the board through those tunnels with one of my characters, and that did really help.
Yeah. There was a lot of fumbling around from this butcher.
Yes.
Bear in mind, it's his mansion. He didn't really have much of a clue where you were for a lot of the time. And you do kind of have to embrace that when you're playing as the butcher. There's other characters in the game where you have much more kind of control over where people are.
Yes.
But largely, this game is played when you're playing one-on-one in silence, where at the end of your turn you just say where the noise is, and I just tell you where I'm going. I pretty much tell you everything, and where barricades are going up. And it'd be interesting to see how that translates to larger player counts, because obviously the killer can't know much about your discussions about where the victims are going to go, and obviously you're working semi-cooperatively, mainly, a purpose in mind, but obviously having to communicate with gestures and pointing. So I'd be keen to see how that plays out, but it did work really well at 2.
Yeah, because I was a bit, I know you can't see the other side of it, but I was even playing 1 as I was moving my characters around on our side of the board, the victim side of the board. I was even paranoid that you might work out, oh, well, she's used her right hand, she must be that side or whatever. So I'd do kind of sleuth moves and then end up somewhere else, just so that you might not be able to tell what I was doing so much.
Well, I think the mansion works incredibly well.
It does.
It does look like a big old faff to set up, but it really wasn't.
No.
Fortunately, everything the killer needs and everything the victims need is set up already in separate trays. So that kind of cancels out the setup of having to build the mansion, which in itself doesn't take too long once you get used to it. You can build this thing quite quickly, and it has got such an impressive table presence.
Yeah, and I thought it would take up quite a bit of the table, but it's actually quite a sort of, I suppose, a narrow footpath. So it's only sort of maybe somewhere a third or half of our table, whereas I thought it would be a much bigger spread. So that I think it is easy to kind of get it to the table, which is great.
And there's been lots of thought put into obscuring, obviously, what you're doing, not just because you literally cannot see around this mansion. Unless you deliberately do it, there's no way of knowing what's going on the other side, which makes this game obviously work.
Yeah,
but there's lots of other bits that are nice, like we have individual rule books. So the victims have their own rule book to check any rules, and the killer has their own. And that completely removes the fact if you're playing with new people, when they're going, how do I do this? They can just check their own rule book, which only has rules relevant to them. Yeah. And there's lots of lovely things like the player aid. If you flip it over, it shows what your opponent can do. There's lists of all the cards in the back, in the appendix, so you can see what's likely going to happen when certain cards are drawn by the killer, or what individual character actions the victims have. So you never feel in the dark about the rules or the method of playing, only in the dark about what your opponent is doing.
And it's nice that the dice tower is integrated into that mansion as well. That's quite a fun little thematic thing.
Well, it does serve lots of purposes. You store your keys on top of it, so everyone can see what's going on there. If the police get called, you can see how far that's advancing. If someone's injured, everyone can see it. There's no grey area about, no, you didn't injure that one, you injured this one, because it's all on full display.
And the other thing that's interesting, like a lot of games, they'll say, right, okay, collect this thing and then you win, or radio in this number of times and then you've won. No. You have to do that task and then you still have to survive. You either have to survive until the police get there, a certain number of turns, so you're sort of running around this mansion trying to hide, and at that point the killer knows that you're heading in a certain direction because you've got to be there at that point in time. And I think, in one of our games, that's what really threw you off, because you were thinking, oh, I think you're going to do it with the keys and I'll try and go to this area, but I had a whole nother plan in mind. And it's nice how you can kind of deceive and decept in this game. So as we were saying, you barricaded off that radio room thinking no one's going in or out of there.
You're not going to be fixing that radio.
You can't finish fixing it. But of course, every time you do that, you make noise. So I knew that I was still able to do that because I could go through the tunnels. But how do I not let the killer know? Well, there are actions where you can make noise everywhere. And it's like, oh, there's noise everywhere. And so I could hide the fact that I was doing something for a turn or two until I'd achieved it. And then I can hightail it out of there without you realizing it happened.
It is so thematic, this game, not just obviously in its table presence, but all of that tension you get from, oh, I could do that, but that's going to make the noise, and making those decisions. And it's just fun playing as the killer walking around revving the chainsaw.
And that does get very threatening towards the end.
And obviously it suggests you start with the butcher character. I don't think he's the best one in there. The murderer is much more fun, and there's a lot more you can do as the killer with that character. With the butcher, you're limited on what you can do. Both the spirit, the ghosty one, and the murderer have much more interesting things you can do. Mainly because you can disappear off the board. That's kind of giving you a taste of your own medicine.
Then I'm in trouble.
Yes, yes. We thoroughly enjoyed playing this game. And I think the fact it's so quick to play makes it so good for groups of people. If you're making an evening of it, you can switch the roles or you can switch the characters, and because you're over and done with in 45 minutes, including probably the setup, it does give you those options of changing who's playing what, who's going to play then, and it's just a really fun immersive experience. And I wasn't really aware of Terrorscape until we came across it at Games Expo, but it's such a fantastic game to bring out with gamers and non-gamers, because particularly if someone is on the victim side who knows the game well, they can suggest what might happen. And if you're particularly worried about the killer knowing too much, well, they just wear headphones and listen to spooky music while you're discussing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great game for all year round, but of course, this one's definitely going to hit our table spooky season for sure. Yeah.
Now, obviously, if you're new to the channel, we are Box Meeples. We post videos right here on YouTube at least twice a week when we're always talking about board games. And I think coming up, I might do a video about how I've painted the miniatures for this one, because I think that might be quite interesting. Got a lot of good responses on Instagram to the painted minis on this. So if you are interested in seeing how I've painted those and techniques I use, make sure you are subscribed. But let us know in the comments down below, have you heard of Terrorscape? Have you played Terrorscape? Are you looking forward to the upcoming Terrorscape 2, which takes these mechanics, finesses them a little bit, and puts it in space?
We are.
Yes, because in space, no one can hear you scream because it might give away your position on your board there. But as always, thank you so much for watching.
Bye.